Hiya folks, and welcome back to the Gosforth Handyman Tips Library. Today's tip is all about making multiple repeat cuts using a track saw or plunge saw. So if you've got an MFT or a multifunction table, which is basically a table with holes in, it's really easy to make multiple repeat perfectly square cuts. But if you don't have an MFT, or you're working with stock that's perhaps too big to go on an MFT, or maybe you're working at a customer's premises and you haven't got an MFT with you, then I'm going to show you what I do to do multiple repeat cuts on bigger stock. Before I start on that, I'm well aware I haven't got a Test Tuesday video out for a couple of weeks now. I'm just really up against it on this particular project. It's a very time dependent project. You'll find out about it at some point via my Twitter or Instagram, or I might have it on my YouTube, I'm not sure. I'm not filming this particular project, but I've got to get this out the road, and until I get a couple of kind of gaps in the production of this particular bit of work, I haven't got time to get a Test Tuesday video done, because the next video that I'm going to do is going to be quite a big one, certainly a one that I want to get right. So bear with us, keep checking back, keep checking on Instagram and Twitter and on YouTube in the community section on YouTube. That's a really good place to kind of keep a handle on what's going on as well. So let me show you around this job that I've got on at the minute. So for this particular job, I've got a whole load of boards that need to be cut exactly 1100 millimeters long. And I've already done a whole load of bevel cuts on them. I've tried and get all the bevel cuts out the road first. So one of the key things when you're working with MDF is that you want to, if possible, remove the factory edge, because there's no guarantee that the board is square, and you're going to want to put a nice new clean square edge on every single board that you're cutting. So my first job is going to be to square all the boards up, and then my next task is going to be to get them all to exactly the same length. So I'm going to show you how I do that. And in this particular case, in this particular job, it's critical that all the boards are exactly the same length. It'll cause big problems with the project if they're not. So here's a board that I've already done, and all I do is I make two guide pieces out of scrap MDF. So we've got one here, one here. This is already set to the exact size needed to give me 1100 from that edge to the splinter guard on the track saw. So it's exactly 1100 from there to there. This is particularly handy if you've got a bevel cut on this edge, because it can be quite tricky to get an exact measurement from a bevel cut. But if you're using a piece of wood just to line up as a guide, you want to minimize the amount of time that you're using a tape measure, because there's too much margin for error with a tape measure. Whereas if you go down this route, you measure once and then you're using this guide every single time after that, and you literally can't go wrong. So all I've got my guide pieces clamped on to the piece of wood, perfectly aligned to the edge, and then I'll just use the track aligned to the edge of my guide pieces, and then that gives me my perfect 1100 cut. Now it's 1100, but it's not necessarily 1100 square. So it's really important that you do a squaring cut first. So that can just be a rough cut with your track saw track lined up against either a framing square or a speed square or whatever you've got to hand. But I think what I'll do is I'll do another, this board's done, but I'll take you through doing a new board from scratch, and you can see what's involved. So I'm going to square up the board first of all. And as I say, you can either do that with a speed square, or if you prefer a framing square, bang on there. Goggles on and dust mask on. then I'm going to flip the board. So we'll know we've got a perfectly square edge on that side now. So that's now our reference edge. Use the quick clamps. So perfectly aligned there. Perfectly aligned on that edge. Butt the track up against that as a guide. Obviously you would put your mask back on, but I can't talk if I've got the mask on. I will put the dust on. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. It's easy as that. And I can blast through all of these boards really, really quickly. Confident in knowledge that they'll all be exactly 1100. Let's just double check it. That's pretty spot on to me. Spot on. So there you have it. Really quick, easy way of doing multiple repeat cuts. And I hope you found that useful. If you want to know more about MFTs, the man to follow is Peter Millard. Peter has done loads of really good videos about using his MFT in his setup. I don't have an MFT, so this is how I do things. This method will also work for pretty much any type of track saw. I'm using a Festool TS55. A few people have asked what these are. These are just the Festool quick clamps. They're expensive, but they're awesome. Very, very quick to use. Links to all of that in the description. Or get yourself onto gosforthhandyman.com. If you've not been on there, there are links to pretty much every tool that I use on a regular basis, or similar tools at least, and hopefully that'll be useful for you, especially if you're just getting up and running in joinery and carpentry. If you want to know more about how to use a tape measure properly, click up here. I still regularly see people using tape measures incorrectly. Watch that vid. It's one of the first ever videos that I put out on this channel. I do see people trying to take inside measurements by like doing this and then holding onto the tag and pulling. That's not right. Thanks again for watching. See you next time.